Have you ever sat down to write and felt like someone was looking over your shoulder? Or like there was a little gremlin in you yelling, "No, that's not good enough." You know, that feeling that whatever you say needs to be perfect. So you get a few words down and then you delete or cross it out. And eventually you walk away in frustration because your words don't sound right. If you've never met that voice, that's your inner critic. And today we're going to talk about how to recognize her and how to write past the internal scolding. Hi, I'm Diane Hatz, and welcome to Hearth Writes. This is a space where we talk about writing, creativity, and the personal growth that comes from reclaiming your voice, especially in midlife. Today's topic is one I know well, the inner critic. She's that voice that tries to protect you by stopping you and saying, "You don't know enough. You're not a writer. This is embarrassing." She often shows up when we sit down to write something from the heart. And if you're not careful, she'll convince you to stay silent forever. That voice is fear, and it's natural. She might always be there. That fear, I name my emotions, but that fear might always be there, but you can learn to keep writing in spite of her trying to hold you back. I have a trunk full of writing that's never seen the light of day. Some of it's because the idea didn't hold me long enough to carry the story through, which is fair enough. But a certain percentage of it is writing that I convinced myself wasn't good enough to shape into something solid. The one thing I did do, and I highly recommend you do, is to keep everything you write, no matter how much you think it sucks. I used to do all my first drafts with pen and paper, and I still print out my work during edits. So I save the actual pages. uh, And I've been writing for so long that some of my stuff is saved on floppy disks. So like, I'm glad I printed it out because, how do you get a floppy disk onto your computer these days? But maybe that book about rock and roll fans or escaping from a cult will never see the light of day. But I think it's good to be able to see how far you've come as well as to have a library of ideas and attempts. You never know if it'll help you down the road. You never know if you'll just pick up something from 20 years ago and you're at a point in your life where you can shape it into something you love. So many of us, especially women, were raised to self-edit before we ever spoke. According to the American Psychological Association, research shows that from a young age, girls are more likely than boys to be praised for being polite, quiet, and helpful, while boys are praised and encouraged to be assertive and independent. This conditioning doesn't simply vanish when you open a notebook or click onto a blank document. It follows you right onto the page. Our inner critic often shows up saying things like, "Don't write that. Someone might get upset. This isn't very original." Or, "You should know what you're trying to say before you start." No one wants to hear this. We start writing with a nun from Catholic school holding a ruler and standing over us. Okay, I went to Catholic school in the 60s and I did get whacked over the knuckles with a ruler at times, once because I ran out of paper. So I know there are very good nuns out there, but you know what I mean. Or like we could have that scolding parent or boss looking over our shoulder, censoring every pen stroke. So before we know it, our page becomes more platitudes than heartfelt truths or place of discovery. And trust me, I still grapple with this in my writing and really honestly, even with the show. So I'm taking my own advice here. I guess I could say one of the reasons I'm doing these videos, it's to help you and to connect with you, but it's also to help me. I'm still growing and learning myself. So writing, it doesn't have to be performative. It can be real and honest and deeply yours. So there's a difference between editing for clarity and editing out of fear. So if you're not sure what you're doing, you're not alone. If your writing feels distant, like it's at arm's length from you, or if it's overly polished or vague, it may be your inner critic censoring you too much. Some ways to tell if she's trying to control you: you spend too much time on the first paragraph and never get to the end of the page. Or if you're like me, you never get to the end of your first sentence. You, I would suggest, you don't have to do it, but I would suggest that you try to train yourself to brain dump. Michelangelo sculpted David out of a hunk of marble, but he had the marble to sculpt. So you need to get the words out in order to sculpt them into what you're really trying to say. Women have a tendency to use words like I think or maybe. I find I have to go through my scripts and article drafts and edit out non-declarative statements. You talk around things, not you. I talk around things rather than being direct very often. And I avoid writing about things that matter because they feel too personal, or we could be afraid of being shamed or judged. A way that we can tell if this is happening is if you try to write something and you feel your entire body tense. If this happens to you, there's nothing wrong. You might be ready to share something that's personal, or you might not, and that's okay too. But maybe try sitting with the feeling and decide if it's something you want to push through or if you should table it until another time. Another way is your inner critic is showing up as you're trying to sound like someone else, like someone more together, more knowledgeable, more palatable, or you intellectualize and are too afraid to put emotion into your work. Whether or not your inner critic influences you, always remember you're still a writer. If you put pen to paper, you're a writer. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. It pisses me off when people are like, oh, you have to have a published book to be a writer. No, you have to be writing to be a writer, period. That's it. So if you feel your inner critic is trying to control you, it just means your writing voice has been living under someone else's expectations, and you can learn to write for yourself. Some practices that might help you tame or to send your inner critic packing include free writing with a timer. So set a timer for 10 minutes. Choose a prompt like what I really want to say is, and just write without stopping. If you get stuck, you can write, I don't know what I want to say. I don't know what I want to say. And just write it over and over and over again until something comes. You can do F you, F you, F you. I've done that before because I can get frustrated. Don't reread what you're working. Don't edit it. Let it be messy. Write outside the lines. Just write. I prefer pen to paper personally. I think you get more connected more to your emotions and to your subconscious if you write with your hand, pen and paper. But when you free write, your critic can't keep up with your flow. And I mentioned this in a previous article, The Artist's Way, which is a Bible to many creative people. Julia Cameron has morning pages, which is 20 minutes of free writing. I also set a timer because it can be excruciatingly and seem like it's never going to end. And if I know I have a timer, I know that there's a point where it will end. Like I can stop. So brain dump. Remind yourself that no one else has to see this. And trust me, I have to tell myself that over and over when I do a first draft because my work is so not polished. You honestly, you would look at me and go, really? You published a book? But, my first version is my hunk of marble that I get the opportunity to sculpt. So try to identify the critic's voice. Whose voice is speaking to you? Is it a parent, a teacher, a former boss, or a part of you that's trying to protect you? Once you name her and you separate yourself from her, she starts to lose power. You get to decide who belongs in your creative space, so you can even ask her to leave. Sometimes I write directly to my critic. Thank you for trying to protect me, but I'm not in danger. You can reset now. You can rest now or rest. Yelling at your inner critic won't work. So a little compassion goes a long way in quieting the noise. And if you want an idea, if you can get in touch and hear that inner voice, have a dialogue and write it down. Turn it into a story. I mean, who is she? What's her background? Where did she come from? What was her life like? Like you could turn it into something very creative and exciting. I find it helpful to separate my writing from the editing. Draft first, edit later. They use different parts of your brain. So let yourself finish the full idea or the story before inviting that critical editor in. Now, the critical editor is not your inner critic. The inner critic wants you just to give up. The inner critic is hopeless. The a critical probably isn't the discerning editor is the one who turns your work into something other people will want to read. So just let yourself at the beginning get everything out of you, however it wants to come out. So you weren't born second guessing yourself. You learned that from people in society around you, and you can unlearn it. And you can teach yourself to write without fear as your main guide. You can let your voice expand instead of shrink. Every time you tell your truth on a page, even if no one else sees it, you build trust and reclaim a piece of yourself. So thank you. This is Hearth Writes. I'm Diane Hatz, and thank you for being here. Please subscribe and like, and I hope you'll join me on my journey to inner peace and successful writing. Thank you.